So today we have an interesting type of video as we are going to be going through the top 5 rarest cars in Greenville. Now do keep in mind that this is totally subjective and some of you guys may think that other cars are rarer than other cars, but I'm pretty much just basing this off what I think, at least from the time that I've been playing this game. Once again though, there isn't really a definitive answer, as there isn't any way for us to tell which cars I use the most or which cars the least people have, etc, etc. So it is honestly just kind of a guessing game, but at least from what I've seen and just basing off, you know, well-known knowledge and stuff like that, this is the list that I have formed together. Before we do get into it though, make sure to leave a like and subscribe as we are on the road to 19.1k subscribers. Thank you guys so much. I'm trying to hit 20k before the end of May, so it would be greatly appreciated. And additionally, for those guys who would like to join my Discord server, make sure to do that in the description below. Step today with all of Greenville and Southwest Florida's update information. But anyways, let's get straight into it. Alright, so starting off here, if we go right to the bottom of my car inventory, at number 5 for the 5th rarest car in the game, we have the 1987 Marileno Anniversario Competitor Zone. And as you guys can see, this is a limited vehicle. It is now off sale. You can no longer get it, and it is pretty much based on the Ferrari F40. This thing was released in one of the Christmas updates. I think it might have been the one in 2022, so it's been over a year now since this thing dropped. However, it's definitely not the oldest car in Greenville, so you may be wondering why I am putting this so high, you know, on the list for rarest cars in Greenville. Obviously, in comparison to the other vehicles, it is at the lowest, but it's still at a very high point in the ranking, despite how technically new of a vehicle it is. And the reason why I have marked this at number 5 is primarily because of the crazy price that it had when it was released. So for those of you guys who didn't play when this car actually came out, it cost a whopping $2.7 million. And from my memory at least, this is actually the most expensive limited car to date. And I don't think there's actually been a limited car since then that has been that expensive. And just putting into perspective how expensive that actually is, even if it was just a regular car in Greenville, if we actually go into the dealership here and actually put it onto high to low pricing, and then go ahead and click on the 2023 Celestial Type 1, the most expensive car in the game currently is the extraterrestrial trim of the Tesla Roadster. And obviously I do have a 15% discount here, but usually it is $5 million. So that's actually not that much more than what this thing was when it released. And I mean, obviously, even I'm assuming that a lot of you guys right now can't afford that either. So for someone to be able to have bought that thing when it came out was definitely a huge flex, and even today still is. And I do remember a lot of people being annoyed about not being able to afford it, since, you know, I don't think anyone really expected them to drop a limited car that expensive, so a lot of people hadn't saved for it. And even then, majority of people hadn't even got enough time to save for it, unfortunately. But for those of you who do own this, you have an extremely rare vehicle on your hands, and it's definitely a huge flex to own it. The next one here is easily one of the most popular vehicles in the game, but is one that a lot of people don't own, at least anymore. And just like the Ferrari, if we actually scroll down here, you can see it, and it is called the 1981 Wine Model 12 Future Line MK2, aka the DMC DeLorean. But what's special about this one, as you guys can clearly see, is that it is actually based off the Back to the Future version of it. And yeah, I think it is kind of a no-brainer as to why this is such a popular vehicle, because I mean, it's easily one of the most detailed limited vehicles that we've ever gotten in this game before. But the interesting thing about this is that despite how cool it is, a lot of people ended up buying it and then selling it, because this thing wasn't really an extremely expensive limited vehicle. From my memory at least, it was only around the $500,000 mark, which, although don't get me wrong, is not cheap, especially when we compare it to the last vehicle. It's not that bad. However, a lot of people ended up selling this vehicle for extra money, which I find to be really unfortunate, since this car came packed with so many cool features. Like, first of all, when you rev it, then the lights around the sides actually glow up, as you can see. Also, I'm not going to do it because I don't want to have to reload into my game, but if you actually stay at 88 miles per hour for long enough, you get transported back into GV3, which is a super cool detail in my opinion, and Greenville doesn't really do that stuff very often anymore. And I mean, I am very confused as to why people sold this, even if it was just for money, since in my opinion, this is one of those cars that you just can't sell. Like, I would be mad if I sold it. But I mean, let me know if you guys own this thing in the comments below, because it is an extremely cool vehicle, and once again, it's a huge flex to have, and I don't really see a lot of these anymore either. Now, no, the next one here is not the Countach, as this thing did literally just come out pretty recently, but this one's actually so rare to the point where not even I own it. And I mean, as a pretty avid collector of cars, as you guys can see in this game, that just shows how rare this actually is. And this is actually the Wisted Kaiju. Now, there's honestly probably a good chunk of you guys who have never even heard of this vehicle before, and that's because that it was removed so long ago. So this was actually one of the first vehicles in Greenville to go off sale. So no, it wasn't actually a limited vehicle. It was literally just removed from the game. The primary reason being that it was a older vehicle model, and from my knowledge, it might have actually been transferred from GV3, and this thing was removed pretty early on in the Greenville revamp. However, it has gone down as a vehicle that is actually an extremely underrated car, since it is known to have some great performance to it, and it was actually an extremely cheap vehicle as well while it was still out. Now, personally, my own story on this is that obviously I started doing YouTube when the Greenville revamp came out, so I was well aware of the fact that this vehicle was going off sale, but I didn't really think much of it at the time, so I never ended up buying it. And if anything, I honestly just thought they were kind of rumors. I didn't actually think it was going to go off sale, since that was kind of just unheard of at the time. But man, do I regret not getting this thing. It is such a sick vehicle, and I really wish that they actually did remodel this thing. Obviously, they could still do that in the the future, because it's honestly not a bad looking vehicle either, and I'm still kind of confused to this day why they removed it, because I mean most people didn't even have an issue with it being an older model. But let me know what you guys think, and also let me know if you guys own this one once again. Now thankfully the next one here is one that I actually do own, and if we scroll up in my vehicle inventory right here, you guys should be able to see it coming up very soon, and this is actually the CIS Truck, aka the Truckler. Now before I get into it, I'm just gonna get this out of the way. Obviously, yes, this is a Tesla pickup truck, and this is actually a real vehicle that was made, but not by Tesla. It was actually made by a group of YouTubers from my memory who actually modified their Tesla to have a pickup truck area in the back, and to say the least, it's actually a surprisingly cool looking car, and it was probably one of the first limited vehicles that were added, which was something that even I would actually like unironically just drive around. Obviously, I think it was partly meant to be like a meme vehicle, but it genuinely wasn't too stupid looking. So now the interesting thing about this is that this was one of the first limited vehicles to be added into Greenville. There were a couple other ones that were added prior to this, but this is definitely well known as one of the earlier ones, which is also partly why it is so rare and why I have put it second on the list. Primarily because obviously, one, a lot of the players who still play Greenville today weren't even playing Greenville back then when this thing came out, so a lot of them didn't even get the opportunity to buy this. But two, a lot of people who did buy this thing ended up selling it, because a lot of people ended up seeing this thing as sort of like a meme vehicle and just something totally useless that they wouldn't have personally wanted to drive. And also, since it does honestly look super similar to a regular Tesla, obviously with a few differences, but it's nothing like groundbreaking, obviously, a lot of people ended up just selling it for the money. And like other limited cars that people have sold in the past, majority of those people did end up regretting it, but obviously that has increased the rarity of it by quite a lot for those who didn't own it previously. But obviously for those who do still own it, it has increased its rarity by quite a lot, thankfully. And although the majority of people who do own it don't drive it around today, it's still just something cool to have in your inventory regardless, so big props to you if you do. Now moving on to the #1 rarest car in Greenville, and this is one that a lot of you guys are probably going to see coming. But if we go to the very top of my car inventory here, you guys can see at the very top we have the Wagon. Now obviously this is an extremely stupid looking car, there is no doubt about it, but it's definitely one of the most legendary cars in this game. Obviously it is built on the base of a PC Cruiser with a horrible paint job, and overall just a very interesting looking vehicle here. And the reason why this is so rare is because, one, this is actually the first limited vehicle that was released in the revamp, and a fun fact was that this was actually a limited vehicle in GB3 as well, but it was obviously removed when the revamp dropped, so they ended up re-adding it back as the first limited vehicle in the revamp. And this thing actually went through a change where not only at one point, I'm pretty sure they did change the engine sounds of this thing, but they also added an interior in it. I think this might have been like a few months or whatever after it was initially added, so it was definitely quite interesting for them to update the interior on such an old vehicle by the time this interior came out. And I mean, compared to Greenville's interiors nowadays, this isn't really that detailed whatsoever, but it's still interesting that we got this in the first place. And surprisingly enough, despite how stupid it does look and the fact that it is a PC Cruiser, obviously, it's actually a surprisingly good performing vehicle. It's nothing crazy, obviously, but still. And yeah, just like every other limited car on this list, a lot of people did end up selling this thing when they first got it, because a lot of people just saw it as such like an ugly looking, annoying vehicle to the point where they just said, screw it, I'm just gonna sell this thing, I don't care if it becomes rare later on. You know, I just don't want this thing to be in my inventory. Thankfully, I was not one of those people, and I still have it to this day. And it is definitely something that I do not regret, because although I pretty much never drive this thing nowadays, it has become an undeniably extremely iconic vehicle. Anyway, so thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, as we are on the road to 19.1k subscribers, so it would be greatly appreciated. And for those guys who want to join my Discord server, that is in the description below. For those guys who want to stay up to date with all my future content and all Greenville and Southwest Florida's update information. And yeah, let me know if you guys agree with my list in the comments below. Obviously, if you guys don't, make sure to put down your own list in the comments below, because I'm definitely interested to hear them. But yeah, anyway, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.